Hello everyone, in this video we're going to look at object-oriented programming within Python. It's a very simple banking script we're going to create. It's going to be able to create separate objects, and each object must follow a structure, and these objects are separate bank accounts, and they will all follow the structure of the class. So an object is basically an instance of the class. We've got the class here set up already with it basically initialized of the structure that all the objects must follow. It's similar to, think of a car. A car has a certain structure each car must follow. Every car has a certain amount of wheels. It doesn't matter if they have different amounts of wheels, but they all have a certain amount of wheels. They all have a certain amount of doors. Some cars have 2 doors, some cars have 4. It doesn't matter what number of doors they each have, as long as they follow that structure of at least a door, if that makes any sense. The car might not even have any doors on it, but there's still 0 doors, if that makes any sense. It's like a balance in a bank. If the balance is 0, then it's still got a balance even though it's 0. So let's get started with this. We've got the initialize here. So this is the structure of the class. Every object that we create must follow this structure, and the structure is an account number, an account name, and a balance. These are the parameters. So account number, account name, and the starting balance, which is just the balance of the account. The self is very important to understand. If I remove this self up here and just leave everything else the same, or I don't want to delete that bracket, so I'll just delete everything apart from self. So you should just see something like this. If I run this, in fact I need to create the object, I do apologize. So I'll create an object here of new account is an instance of bank, and then I'll follow the structure. So we need an account number, it doesn't really matter what you type in here, an account name, account 1, and the starting balance. So the starting balance can be 250, so could be £250, that should be a comma, and there we go. If I run this, you'll see that there's an error. It says init takes 3 positional arguments, but 4 were given. This may confuse a lot of people because we've only passed in 3 arguments into the parameters. These are the parameters and these are the arguments, but we've only passed in 3. We've got the account name, account number, account name, and the balance. The reason that there's a 4th basically invisible parameter and arguments I should say that's missing is because it's the object itself that's missing. So we need to type self because each object needs to know what its own details are. In this instance you might have a separate object here, account 2. This will have it will in fact have completely different name, different account number, and possibly a different balance. I mean, it's possible that 2 accounts have the same balance, but you can see now they're 2 separate objects, completely separate from each other. They've got their own balance, they've got their own account name and account number. And when we refer to a specific object, for example, if we wanted to display the balance of this object here, then it needs to know which balance to display. And we pass this in here as an argument into the start bal, and that is saved in self.balance. So anytime we refer to new account, for example here, new act2 dot add, and then we type 100, even though this doesn't exist yet, this is basically a deposit. So when we type something like this and we create the add function, it will pick up its self.balance, so it knows that it's this here, and then just add 100 to that and then display it. The reason for that is so it doesn't use another object's balance, or in the case of each account or each object doesn't all have the same balance, because that would be pointless. It'd be basically like a massive shared bank account. They've all got to be unique. It will make more sense, this self.account number, as we go along. I won't make it too complicated with all the functions. We'll have a simple deposit, withdraw, and show balance. So let's create the deposit. So you type def for a function, and I'll just call this deposit. Then we need self, remember to refer to its own balance, and then amt for amount. You could type amount, it doesn't really matter here. So it's self.balance, for me it's underscore balance plus equals amount. This will just get the amount value that we pass in as an argument and add it to the balance of the account. So this is where we refer to the account. We refer to the object, sorry. We type new ac.add, in fact deposit, make sure you type it, it's the function's name. And then we type the amount, which is this here. So we want to deposit $100, £100. And that will work. If I run this, nothing will be displayed because we aren't outputting anything, which we'll create now. So I'll add some space down here, make sure the indentation is correct for another function, and I'll call this def show underscore balance. We need to pass in self. We don't pass any parameters in here because we don't need to pass anything in. We're just displaying information. So after you've typed that, what I'll do is I'll just create a print function. So remember the F for the format, and then in brackets, curly braces, sorry, you type the variable. So in this case, it's self._account name. I'll include the account name, and then the balance is self._balance. And there we go. Now that we've created this function here, show balance, we need to show the specific object's balance. We need to always refer to the object that we want to display or do something with. So again, it's new act.show_balance. You don't need to pass any arguments in here. So let's just see what happens. There we go, account 1, which is what we typed here. Grammatically, it doesn't really make sense. You'd probably type something like this, account name. And then that just refers to the account name and then the account balance. So let's just check this now. Account name, account 1. And then the balance is 350. The reason it's showing 350 is because we deposited 100 here, which made it 350 in total. Because the initial value was 250, we deposited 100. That means now it's 350. We're also displaying it here. Now this would work for a separate object. So you create a new object, new account2 equals bank, so it's an instance of the class, and a completely separate value. I'll call this just account2 though, and then I'll give it a completely separate starting value of 500. Then I'll just show the balance of the account2. Remember, you've got to refer to it like this, and then run it. So account name, account 1, balance is 350, account name, account 2, balance is 500. Remember, we are depositing 100 here, it's just because I showed you how to create a deposit function. The show balance, we could also withdraw. So the last one we'll do is withdraw, so def, and then withdraw, self. Again, we need to refer to its own balance, each object's specific own balance. Amount, because we want to withdraw a specific amount, so we are passing in an argument like we did with the deposit one here. And we're going to create an if statement. The reason for the if statement is because if you try and withdraw more money than you've actually got in the account, it needs to display an error, because if you've only got 500 in the account and you try and withdraw 1,000, you haven't got enough money to actually withdraw. So we'll just display a message. But first we're going to test if the account balance is greater than what they requested to withdraw. So self.__balance. If it's greater than or equal to the amount that they requested, then we'll just subtract it from the balance. If not, so else, then we'll just print not enough cash to withdraw. Essentially, I'll just recap this a little bit. Once we run this function and we type in an argument of 100, so let's say for account 2, if I type new account 2 dot withdraw, and I'll withdraw 100. So this is the argument here, which is passed into the amount parameter, and we're testing a condition. So if the self.balance, remember that's the specific balance of this object that we're referring to, which we set at 500. If that balance is greater than or equal to the amount that we've requested to withdraw, then just subtract the amount that we've requested to withdraw from the balance. So let's see what happens after we display the balance again. So we've got show balance twice here because we're making a change to the account. We've set the object by default. We're showing the default, bank account settings. Then we're making a change because we're withdrawing 100. Then we need to show the balance again. It's like logging into the online banking. You deposit some money, you need to log back out and log back in to see the change. So there we go. Account 2 balance is 500, which is displayed here because that's the default one. Then we withdrew £100 or $100, and then showed the balance again, and now it's gone down to 400. If we try and withdraw 1,000, then you can see it says not enough cash to withdraw, because the account only has £500 in it. Therefore, it's going to print out not enough cash, because we're trying to withdraw £1,000 when we're going to got 500. This condition here makes that work, because again, the self.balance, so the balance of the account, if that is greater than the amount we're requesting to withdraw, then withdraw it. Basically just subtract it from the bank, the balance in the bank. But if not, then just say you've got not enough cash. You could do it the other way by saying if the amount is greater than the balance within the bank, then obviously display the error. You could do it backwards, but I prefer to do it this way. Let's have a look at doing the other way so you'd actually learn something. If the amount is greater than the self underscore balance, so if the amount is greater than the balance in the account, then we obviously need to print not enough cash to withdraw. And then we'll do the opposite here. You can see how I just turned that statement completely around. We want to remove that. So that's just the opposite way of doing it. So if the amount that we type in is greater than the self.balance, then we just print this error out. So let's run it again. And you can see it's still working. Not enough cash to withdraw. If I type 100, because the amount 100 is greater than, this condition is not met because the amount 100 is less than 500. Obviously it's not greater than, so therefore it should work. And there we go, 500 subtract 100 leaves 400. So that's like withdrawing out of an ATM. Obviously your balance goes down once you've got cash in hand. So that's basically object-oriented programming. Hopefully it was an okay introduction. It does take a while to get your head around it if it's something completely new to you. That's why I went over a few things quite, excessively. Like, for example, that balance one then. But it's important to learn this stuff. Play around with it. Get used to it, because it's very useful, and object-oriented programming is becoming used more and more. So that's how to create a simple banking system. Now I'm going to show you one last thing, because it's also important to understand. You can refer to specific objects, I should say details in this case because it's bank details, but their own specific variables. If I wanted to add two separate objects balances together, I can't refer to self.__balance. So let's create a separate function. You don't have to do this, you could just follow along. If I type def add and then self account 1 and account 2, the parameters don't really matter because they don't need to be matched up. I'll create a variable here called test, and I'll just add the account balance of account 1 to the balance of account 2. You can see here, instead of typing self, I'm typing the actual object's name and account2.balance. And there we go. So we've added these two balances together, specifically I think the initial value. I'll remove all of the deposits and withdrawals so it makes it easier to understand. So we've only got show balance and show balance. There we go. So it's 250 add on to 500. Then we want to print this test. A very quick way of just doing it within the function. Usually you would create like show balance or whatever, but in this instance I'll just print out this variable, which is the result of the first object's balance added on to the second object's balance. And then click do apologize, I completely missed. Hey, I have to actually call the function, so I'll type newac.add and then I'll pass in newac1 and newac2. And there we go. So you can tell I need to go to sleep or something. I typed that as a string. I have no idea why I done that. I do apologize. I typed that as string when I should just refer to this variable. There we go. So 750. You can see now I've specifically told it to target each object and its own specific balance. This is useful in case you wanted to like create a function to send balance to each other. You know, like two different accounts can send money to each other, because then you can actually refer to account 1's balance and then add whatever account 2 sends it, for example. But that's basically object-oriented programming within Python using, a banking system. Very simplistic. I mean, there is much more to object-oriented programming. It will get more complex, but hopefully that was just a very brief and useful introduction into object-oriented programming. If it did help, please leave a like, comment. If you're stuck with anything, I'll be happy to help, and I'll see you all in the next video.